of Diary of a Not So Mad Black Woman. I'm your host, Dawn Sanders, and today we have a truly remarkable guest with us. She is a professional who has years of experience helping African American women in the area of science, technology, engineering, and math, coaching, and professional development. I want to hand it off to my guest so that she can give an overview of her background and her experience. Our guest today is Dr. Andrea Bowens-Jones. Andrea, welcome.
Thank you. And thank you, Dawn, for the invitation and the opportunity to come onto your platform and just share a piece of my story. And so, yes, like you mentioned, I spent years in industry. I'm actually a chemist by training. I have a PhD in polymer chemistry, and that took me to spend a number of years in corporate America, where I found eventually what I found is my passion and what I do today, and that's people development. While I was in corporate, I did everything from managing a team of scientists and engineers to coaching people on my team, and also starting a program to introduce minority students in greater Cincinnati area into the world of STEM and what the career opportunities should look like. So I love the 15 and a half years I had in corporate, but I also love what I do now. When I left almost 8 years ago, a little over 8 years ago, what I did is become a certified coach. And so I coach individuals, I go inside of companies, I do training and development, helping them to create inclusive work cultures so that those Black women, people who look like me, can have a seat at the table and their voices be heard. So I do quite a bit of that, as well as one-on-one coaching, group coaching, speaking on various topics from inclusion and diversity in tech, all the way to empowering yourself to kind of achieve your goals. So yes, I'm excited to be here and excited to have a conversation, because I am not a mad Black woman anymore.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. I'm mad, not so mad, and sometimes glad, but it's all together good. I wanted to ask you, you talked about your journey as you were a part of the corporate environment, and now you are outside of corporate doing your coaching and helping others. And I'm sure within any of the roles that you've had over the years, you've always been a pivotal advocate for other people. Can you talk about what has shaped your career and what has taken you on this path? What inspired you to go in this direction?
Into my current direction?
Yes.
Inspired me to go into this direction. One, I'd like to say I'm in multiple directions now. So I want to take the stance of just kind of talking about my faith a little bit, because that's how I got on the trajectory that I'm on now. Is I had reached that point in my career where I was at a crossroad, and it was one of those crossroads where I knew that I could stay and continue to do the things that I had been doing up to that point, which was well over a decade and a half, or I had an opportunity to what we now call pivot, make a change, but we weren't talking about that phrase several years ago. But I was at that point. I couldn't reconcile why inside of the corporate walls, I was one person, a person I didn't like, who showed up on Monday. And then outside of those walls, I was someone else, until I started praying about it. And what the Lord revealed to me is that I had somehow allowed myself to become what they wanted me to be. I had, which was a lesser version of who I was. And that lesser version of me caused me to be frustrated, caused me to be, to feel like I was trapped. I was inside of a box. And what the Lord said to me is that you are a person of limitless possibilities. He created me to be that way. And what I was doing every day was sliding Monday through Friday, sliding into a box. And it was limiting me. And that's what I felt like I was being choked. So I think a little bit of it was getting to that point where I truly embraced what the Spirit was leading, where the Spirit was leading me and what it was revealing to me. And then just said, okay, I want to break out of this box. What do I do? And be careful when you ask that question. Sometimes you're going to get that answer back. And for me, the answer was, it's time to go. And so when I made that decision, it's time to go, I just kind of watched how God started orchestrating the path to lead me to the what's next. So that's how I got into this new, what I call my second career. At this
You mentioned, and I know that it was you were being jovial when you made this comment about not being angry, right? Can you tap into that and touch on that a little bit? How, because being in corporate, right, there are some challenges that we
Yeah,
exclusively face as African American women, and some of those challenges may have some impact on our emotions, more specifically our emotional well-being, and even more, our mental health. So can you talked about it. I was
yeah.
going to go in a different direction, but I think I want to stay here a little bit because I know you
Okay.
can help us.
Okay. Well, yes. What did I experience? I think it was. I have one incident in my mind in particular that came up as you were talking, where I was sitting across the table from a manager, and at the time I was being groomed for a leadership role, and going to be promoted. At least that was the way it was talking. And then that manager told me that, I know that this has been going on, but what I'm going to tell you is you're not going to be promoted because you do not have leadership. And that's just one of the many examples of being told, that I was something that was in contrary to what I knew I was.
Mhm.
And many times I sat at tables where I was probably the most educated in the room, having 3 degrees in chemistry, a number of internships prior to getting that first role. Publishing papers, all the things that it takes, that's necessary, hurdles that you have to go through when you're getting a PhD in polymer chemistry. And I just remember being made to feel small.
Mhm.
And I wrote about it a little bit in my ebook when I articulated is some of it I can say they did to me. I can honestly say that it was people not liking me. You could put fingers on it how you were treated, inappropriate. But sometimes it was me doing it to myself
Mhm.
because I didn't open my mouth. And if I had to say anything to any of your listeners is, if you feel like you're not being treated correctly or justly or fair, then make your voice known. And I had somehow lost my voice during that time and had given it over and had slid into this place of mediocrity. And I don't know, and who wakes up and say, I want to be mediocre one day. And that's what I want to be. But
Mhm.
somehow I had lost that black excellence that I knew I had coming into it. So I think it was for me, in my experience, I cannot say that it was all these managers, because I had some great ones, some great mentors, some great coaches, some great managers. And then I had some sorry ones,
Mhm.
some that did not recognize, or even if they recognized what I was capable of, they did not want to put me in an environment that I could shine in it.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
I hope that helps and it sheds some light on in some of those experiences I had. But I got story after story of times that I may have either done it to myself or allowed some of these injustices to happen in my presence.
No, I appreciate you sharing that. And the reality is, oftentimes, until we find ourselves, the core of who we truly are, we lack the ability to articulate what's inside our voice in a way that causes change to happen. I can say, particularly, certain employers or environments believe that they hire the best of the best. And in hiring the best of the best, they believe that they can cultivate people into this cookie cutter model of who they deem to be the best. And what that
Yeah.
does when it manifests for African American women is that when they put us in this box and we present ourselves in a different way, it just throws them completely off.
Yeah.
And I'll share another story later, maybe not on this broadcast, but when you were saying what you were saying, I have some relatable uh, challenges. But what I will ask you is, when did any of that play into you actually going to God and asking Him for your next direction, right?
Hmm.
any of those experiences where you just come to an impasse in your career where you said, I need to know what's next? Or was it because of the challenges that you faced?
Well, there are two, yes and no. I say some, yes. 2 years prior to me making the decision to leave, I was at that point. I was a mad Black woman. And I remember going to God, and I was ready to go. It didn't matter if I didn't have a next step. I was just so tired of being made to feel so small. And God said, not yet. And I think I could not leave in that state of being angry. I had to figure out, and you said it's not until you get your voice. You said it a few minutes ago, so you could articulate what was inside. I had to get to a point where I took responsibility of the role that I played in it. So when I left, I didn't leave in an angry way. So when it was time to really leave, no, the anger didn't play into it. I just was at that point where I didn't want to do it anymore. We recognize that corporate America, no matter what they try to say about it, there is a game that's there. And you have to be willing, if you want your career to continue to flourish and grow, you got to be able to play that game. And that's the corporate game. And I was just at that point where I didn't want to do that anymore. I wanted to be in a place where I could impact and make change. I no longer aspired. I had changed from the Andrea that came out of grad school and could only think about is going up the ladder. I wanted the shoes, the look. I wanted that whole thing that came with the title behind my name. I didn't care about that anymore. I had evolved from it. And in evolving for it, there was no longer a place for me there. And I started to feel like I didn't fit. So you talk about your leadership style being different, and they recognizing it was beyond that. I just didn't fit anymore. So I couldn't play to pretend to fit. So that's what prompted going to God and saying, this is not working. Something's not right. I can't put my finger on it. And then that's when he revealed it to me.
Yeah, I think I can share in a similar understanding or revelation, right? I think at some point I tried to assimilate myself into the culture of corporate America until I very clearly understood that many of the foundational practices and principles that are followed are not godly. They're not godly. So when we find ourselves in an environment like that it does not hold fast to godly principles, but we are godly beings, right? It makes it difficult for us to be able to navigate through it. So I'm being good. I'm being good.
Unless he has you, let me add something to that. Unless he has you on assignment there. So when I look back over my time, you remember the highlight reel, the good parts. We kind of forget about the parts that stung so bad, because who wants to stay there that long and revisit it? But I remember having this reflection time where I started to understand that those years I was on assignment. Do you know how many people I ministered to while I was in there? I would just shut my door and allow them to cry. I prayed for people on the job. I prayed for coworkers, prayed with people, because they knew what I stood for. And I was unwavering with that all those years, which is why it was so hard for me to fit. It's because I was just unwavering. I didn't know how to be somebody that I wasn't. So that made me a little bit of an oddball. Sometimes I was a little bit of a loner when it came in. A lot of people thought I was shy and quiet. No, I had a lot to say. It's just that environment just took my voice away from it. But yeah, I get it. But if he has you on assignment, yeah, it's different.
Yeah, I was trying to be good until you went there with the assignment. And so the reality is, you are correct. We are on assignment and we don't want to lose our witness. And lo and behold, my assignment may be very much tied to the end of your assignment. So, God, Joshua, that's all I'm going to say for now. But sometimes there needs to be a shaking. There needs to be a transformation of things. And sometimes what was good enough then is no longer good enough. And when we allow for humans to come in an environment that is not adaptive enough for them, that is actually created for their downfall, there needs to be some source of changes. When you have systems that have been created to drive the model that you design, that you prefer, but you welcome others that are not conducive to that model, but you don't create systems that can support their success, that's a problem. That's a problem. So if I never knew it before, I understand my assignment. I got it. All right. So diversity and inclusion, let's talk a little bit about that. One of the things with my current role that I've learned or understood about my organization is that they do a great job of recruiting diverse talent, whether that talent is minority from a race perspective, sexual orientation, neurodivergent. They do a good job of recruiting. What they don't do so well at is retention and retaining that talent. Can you share a little bit about your personal and professional journey and the influences that you have had and your commitment to advocating for others, and how or what we can do, whether it's from the organization perspective or us as individual employees, to help change those dynamics when we realize that that our organization struggles in that area?
Yeah. Great question. And I think you started to kind of hit on it in the last segment where you talked about some of the systems. The truth is a lot of the corporate systems are broken. It may not be for every company, and it may be a blanket statement, but when you think about organizations that were built, I don't know, 20, 30, 50, some 100, 150 years ago, and they put these systems in place, they were not a set for people who look like us. They weren't set for people who were even neurodivergent, even people who think differently. They weren't set for people who lead differently, who show up differently. And part of the issues and why companies see these problems with retention is until they get to the point that they change the systems and they just focus on just changing the marginalized person to fit in broken systems, it won't work. It's kind of like putting that round peg in a square hole. You just keep trying, it's not going to fit. And so when I've seen it work well, and this is what I do now as a consultant, is work with companies who are committed and get it, that we're not going to send our unmarginalized folks through training, more assertive training, empathy training, and you name it. And I love training, but I also do training too. And there's a place for it. But if you're trying to fix people who aren't broken, then it is not going to go anywhere. And trust me, I've been through my fair share of training on the receiving end versus on the giving end. But companies who are committed to systematic change, they're saying our systems need to be updated. The way we recruit is not inclusive. The language we use in there, to how we interview. We're not using an interview, or we're not interviewing in a way that could speak to someone who may be of Asian descent, to someone who is native to American, like all the way across the board. And so how do we fix those things? So I think it starts with a commitment and recognizing that the system is broken. Now let's start systematically identifying where we need to attack, whether it is our hiring and retention, whether it is our promotion. Let's talk about the promotion as one of them. You got people who are stuck in the system, can't get past middle management. There's no representation at the higher levels because the way that they promote from within is also broken. So even fixing that particular system is another one. And companies who are committed to it will actually do the work that's necessary to put things in place so that they can see that change happen on the other end. So
yeah,
I hope that was helpful.
No, that was absolutely helpful. And I think that part of the challenges that a lot of organizations have is that they see what they did yesterday, and they see that it was prosperous for them yesterday, and they don't want to change today. They want to keep the status quo. I'll share something with you. I shared it with my last guest, so the people who've been watching, they heard it. But I'll share with you a story that was told to me by one of my leaders for the organization that I currently work for. So what was shared with me, he and I were talking about the different model that this organization has for bringing in talent. And basically their model is they like to hire college students. So they like to bring in interns, and from the intern, they like to cultivate them into leaders. So they have a brilliant system. I'm telling you, Harvard Business School could probably teach a course on the system that they have adopted over the last 180 years that they've been in existence, right? So they've mastered that. What they have realized over the years is that they need specialized skills in order to take their organization to the next level. So over the years, they played with bringing in experienced hires and moving some of the pegs, right, in different directions than what they're used to. As he and I were having the conversation, we were talking about how, or I made the comment that you guys are in this multi-universe. You're in this multi-universe where you have these different sets of talent that are trying to navigate through your culture, and it's very difficult. He was very clear with me. We're not in a multi-universe. We're in one universe with exceptions. And the universe is not going to change itself to accommodate the exceptions. And where I was listening to the conversation, and he was transparent and very bold and sharing that, and I was like, ooh, oh, okay. What I realized at that time is that when you have an organization that has an air of arrogance to believe that they are the best of the best, and I guess because of the aptitude test that they take, because they believe that, they limit themselves to receiving the diversity that they need in order for them to grow and to go to that next level. I was floored because, and I've been with this organization now for 3 years, and I've had a challenge in trying to get my footing, but he helped me to understand that it's not that as you said, it's not that I'm this small person. It is the perception and the fight for the universe to maintain its equilibrium, to say, look, we're good over here. You an exception. You coming in for a very express purpose, and that's all we need you for. So you cannot have talent that feels just like in a marriage, right? If you have a married couple and the wife feels that the intimacy between her and her husband is simply because of what he can get out of it, you're not going to have a good relationship, or you're not going to progress. But anyway, so that was shared, and I was just floored. Like, there are people, you know, like the M&M's commercial, you do exist. There are people that that really, really believe that they have a higher level of intellect, therefore they are superior to others. And I think that that is such a disadvantage to organizations.
And that's exactly how bias enters into systems, and it becomes institutionalized in systems because of that. It is a bias to believe that I can only get talent from one school or one kind of person, or it can only look like this, wrapped in this kind of package. You have, just by having that mindset, it limits the organization, because now I'm only limited by a metric that everybody can't live up to. And so when it comes to truly an organization like that, truly embracing what it means to create an inclusive culture, they're going to be limited. You already know that they're going to be limited. with it. And I've experienced that a lot, even with as a consultant working with companies who say, I'm good over here. Like, you can help me with this, but I'm good over here because it's working and I don't want to break it. And if you start poking around with it, you might find something wrong with it. But there's a laundry list of different kind of biases and microaggressions and all these things that have now coined fake phrases when it comes to how media talks about it, but it's real. Mm-hmm. And because it exists and because it has people, we all have a bias, but when you bring a strong bias into that one and it becomes a part of the systems, it becomes institutionalized and one person can't fight it. It has to be dismantled and it has to be engagement at the top to do so.
I'm glad you brought that up about everyone having a bias. And in your field of science and in my field of technology or IT, it's important to have biases. That is a great thing. The challenge is when you shut down other information that can come in and help you to cultivate or evolve, right, in your understanding. And I think that that's the challenge that a lot of leaders today in corporate America have. And it's unfortunate that they are seated in position to make decisions that don't suit people like you and me. So
absolutely.
I'll try to move on from that. But I know that you are an advocate for those within our community. Again, you talked about your coaching. Can you share more about how you, especially for organizations, when you go in and you see some of the challenges, and maybe you may run into someone like the leader that I was talking about that was very clear on the end goal, which was to maintain substance in what they have today. How do you navigate through those challenges?
Well, the difference with being a consultant, you're paid to come in and do something and then leave versus when you work for an organization. Usually the organizations that that are inviting me to come in, whether it is to give a seminar or to actually come in through one of the organizations I work with, they're coming in, they want us to come in and do some work. So I have not found as much resistance like that because the ground has already been tilled before we come in and they're ready for it. But occasionally I do run into some that are not all bought in with decisions that have been made by upper leadership. So they're not the key leaders, they're maybe lower leaders, and believe that it doesn't take all the effort that's being put into to do it. So sometimes it's helping to educate people. Like we have a training that we do to kind of help people understand bias so that they will understand that we all have it and how it shows up in the workplace, how that can impact everything from power dynamics in an innovation team to just sitting in a meeting and how those play out and how some people may not feel as comfortable speaking out because of the power dynamics that are in the room. So some of it is education with people. And if their mind is open enough to be educated on the possibilities of what an organization could look like or what the impact of not being building an inclusive culture can do, it can help have productive conversations. Now, if their mind is closed, so meaning they're not open to it, they believe what they believe, they have a fixed mindset with it, and it becomes much more challenging. For it. So either they're on board for what the organization has made a decision to do, or they're just in there and we're asking them, just don't be disruptive. If they're making you be in here, just don't be disruptive, whether other people are learning with it. But it's a challenge because everybody won't be on board. Everybody won't see the point of it, and everybody won't be in favor of what it does when an organization is inclusive. So meaning you have all these voices, all these people of color at the table. That makes people uncomfortable.
Yeah. When I started the journey of research for my book to help to put into words some of my experiences, I came across the 1619 Project. And I love a lot of the things that I learned in my journey of just really getting engrossed in the ideal that we came over here a lot sooner than what they said. But one of the things that it always made me think about is imagine where the United States of America would be today if we would have embraced the diversity of those that we wanted to come into this country versus bringing us here as slaves. When you think about people like Madam C.J. Walker or Judge Washington Carver, think people like that who have done different things to change the whole direction of our country. If we were to embrace that on the onset, at the beginning, the foundation, we would be so much further along. But again, so lesson we still haven't learned.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about that one. A work in progress.
Yeah.
Something you got to keep something to pray about, huh?
Well, I'll tell you, it's amazing because one, my prayer oftentimes is God, take the scales off of their eyes, but sometimes I think God strategically placed them there. We see many times where God hardened the hearts of leaders and kings for the purpose of showing his people who he really is, right? And the challenge that we have, at least for me, is sometimes when I'm going through those valley experiences, really tapping in and knowing that God is in full control. And ultimately,
no matter
he
what
got it. Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes. So I wanted to talk about your impact on the Black community and the things that you have done with the highlights of some of your initiatives and the strategies that you have. You talked about your coaching. Can you give us a little flavor of how you have impacted the Black community and helped to promote from within?
Yeah. I, in addition, actually within my coaching practice, one of the things that I do that's foundational is I help people understand how they're uniquely wired. Because I think one of the things that I struggle with when I was in corporate is I thought in order for me to be successful, I had to be like, you name the person, XYZ. And because I wasn't wired that way, I thought it was something wrong with me. And it wasn't until I was becoming certified with many of the things that I use in my coaching practice that I was like, wow, a leader can look like this. A leader can look like this. A leader can look like that. So I help people understand how they are wired. Everybody's not extroverted. Actually, I'm introverted. Everybody is not going to be the person to be the loudest voice in the room. Now, how can you still be successful in a culture like corporate America that only recognizes the person that's speaking the loudest? They're not always right. And so some of it, I help people understand that one because God made us all differently, made us wonderfully made. You can go and search the scripture about it and helping them leverage their strengths to show up differently in a corporate environment. So that's one of the things I do. The other thing that I do is, and that's on an individual one-on-one coaching. I do masterminds as well. And masterminds is a way to bring together a group of people, like-minded people, where not only are you learning from going through an experience together, whether it be a curriculum that's guiding you through the process, and I do that as a coach, but also each other. So it's so much magic that happens when you get, for example, a group of women together. And I've done it with all races, mixed genders and everything. And they're all moving in the same direction, meaning I want to move to increase my own personal power kind of thing with it. And when I talk about the magic that happens, it is the cross-fertilization of ideas, the creativity that's sparked by having this group together moving in the same direction. So I facilitate mastermind groups as one of it. And I also speak. So in January, and I'm in Metro Atlanta area, I am hosting a conference called the Shine Conference that's based on Matthew 5:16. It's about if we let our light shine, we do that such that we draw all men to the Lord. And we manifest all the things, the gifts that are inside of us, and it gives honor to our Father in doing so. And so we're having the inaugural dream casting brunch. So with that one is I'm helping women, and this is a women's empowerment event, be able to kind of launch that dream, that thing that they thought about, the thing that they didn't even think could come true because they don't even trust the dream that they're dreaming. So creating an atmosphere to allow people to do that and do that among other women is what that event is about. So I've done a host of events. They're all around training, coaching, and speaking, all of this. And I think my post corporate event is all about helping people navigate the lives that they want. So whether they stay in corporate or whether they launch out and become an entrepreneur, is helping them understand all of those. The name of my company is IDG Vision. Inspire, Develop, Grow is what it stands for. And those were 3 words God gave to me 5 years before I left corporate. Didn't know what it meant, but knowing now, he was laying the foundation that that's what I've been called to do. Inspire people, develop them. So that's about giving them tools and helping them grow so they can grow others and the vision inside of them. So that's a little bit about me, what I do now.
Amen. And that is so needed. Inspire, develop, and grow, and helping people to understand the core of who they are so that they can ebb and flow in this world and be free to be themselves. One of the reasons that it's hard to come in and to be like someone else is that culturally, some cultures, they mimic one another, even to the point that they will read a book. This I never got. They would read a book and literally try to act out in real time some of those things that they learned in the book. For me, it's about getting the knowledge, processing it into something that is applicable. But I'm talking about just like cookie cutter soldiers. I never with that. I think part of the challenge for me in corporate America is that I confuse them. I come in, some days I'm polished and poised. Some days I'm ratchet and ghetto. Some days I am authentically myself, unapologetically, authentically DAWN. Because at the end of the day, I started this way. I'm going to end this way. And everything in between is temporal. And so with being yourself is so key. So, yes. And I thank God. I'm telling you, I had to fight my way to this. I'm talking about not just in corporate America, in the church, in communities and nonprofits, you always fighting to be yourself. And people say, come as you are. Well, I did,
But they don't mean it. That's what I tell people all the time. They don't mean that when they tell you bring your whole self.
and you know what I had to realize, Andrea, is that God knew better. God knew better. If he let me wake up this morning, he knew that I was going to be me from sun up to sundown. So if he knew better, you better tap into him so you can learn some more. But anyway, so all right. So with and see, I better be good. Tell me about some success stories and some moments of pride that you have had with some of your clients in the Black community, some of their successes that they've experienced from the coaching and the things that you have done in their lives.
Yes. In particular, working with she must be in her 30s, so that would be a millennial, young leader. She's excited about life and changing the organizations she's in. But at the same time, she struggled with how she was kind of showing up at work. And so we really focused on helping her. And I think the part that she struggled with is she hadn't gotten to a point where she fully accepted and embraced who she was. And so we spent quite a bit of time just on just understanding your own personal superpower. How you go in and change an organization. Not worry about how Susie does it. Don't compare yourself to her, but how do you do it? And getting her comfortable with that. Now we've worked together for I'd probably say almost a year, or going into year 2, and the success she's had has been tremendous. She has grown her company. She's an entrepreneur as well. She's had a larger impact as a result of it, by focusing on her personal power, and then putting together a structure within her company that helped her leverage her own strengths so that she wasn't mimicking and being like someone else. So that's one of them. I worked with another woman that was inside of an organization, and for her, she was at that transition point, trying to figure out: do I stay, um, or do I go somewhere else? Like, I want to be promoted, and so for her, it was about getting to the point that her path was clear and had clarity about what she should do, helping her remember what her North Star was. And the path to get to success does not have to look like someone else's. So many of them come, and I don't just work with women, Black women or white women. There has been all in between. I've worked with men as well. And so with men, some of the times they may be a little bit more reluctant to coaching, especially having a woman coach, but they have found their way to the other side of my screen. And we focus on, for men, it's a bit more challenging, where their challenge is the society has an expectation and is a little bit more unforgiving when it comes to, in particular, Black men and how they show up. And so getting him in touch with who he is as a man, and where he is allowing himself the grace to make the mistakes, learn from the mistakes, to become a better version of themselves. I tell all the people that I coach, in particular with one-on-one coaching, is I'm not a preacher, but you can expect that God is going to be in the midst when we're coaching. So with all of my clients, they are on my prayer list. I am praying for their successes and their breakthroughs that they get through it. And I'm praying that they get it quickly and that they learn from it. And so helping people learn from their journeys is a big part of moving forward. You can't just say, this is where I want to go. I want to be promoted tomorrow. I want to go up to this ladder. Andrea, help me get there. My first question is why? Why? We're going to keep peeling back the layers so you understand why, to make sure that why is connected to your why. Because I think that was the trap I was in. If anybody would have asked me, I would have said, I want to be promoted. Of course. I have the credentials. I have the ability. I have the knowledge and all these things to advance. But if someone would have kept asking me why earlier, maybe I could have gotten to the point that wasn't my place. It was always meant to be temporary. And I was meant to get what I needed from it, because my why is so much bigger than what corporate America was going to allow me to do. So.
I think that's important too, and helping people to understand. I love what you said earlier about being beautifully and wonderfully made in God's image, and the fact that you allow your faith and what you know to work to come into the equation. I think when we try to dilute our faith, right, and we're not a real help to others, right? But when we show them by example the truth of who they are, that's key. What are some of the things? So for the people who are listening today, what does it look like to know who you are or to find yourself? What does that look like? I think you started talking about getting to the end of why, right, to understand. But what exactly does it look like to find yourself?
Yeah. I wish it were a straightforward answer to people, because everybody's looking for, help me find my purpose. The truth is, it's a journey. And for what your purpose is today. And for some people, they can perfectly articulate their purpose. And maybe 5 years from now, it would be the same thing they articulated 5 years before. But the thing is, if we're truly following God, we're always evolving and growing. So to get to that point where you have a level of understanding and clarity, you can articulate what your strengths are, what you bring to this world. What is that gift? What is the assignment in this season for you to do? For some people, when I look back over my life, there were some seasons of my life, my assignment were my children, and I have 3 daughters. I couldn't get anything else done besides mothering. There was nothing happening on the work scene. because my assignment for that season were the kids. It didn't change my purpose and why God created me, but it was my assignment for that season. So helping people tease that out so they don't get confused about what their assignment is for a season versus why God put them there. The articulation of me understanding my why. I was literally in my 40s before I understood that mine was inspire, develop, grow. But it came as a result of a season of seeking God, seeking the Creator, because He's the only one that knows. I thought I was doing the right things. I mean, I went to school, graduated, did all those things. I still went to church on Sunday. I gave honor to God. I tithed. I worked with the children's ministry. I did all those things. And I was churching during those times. I was not at a point where I was in relationship with God, where I could understand what He wanted me to do, and asking Him, God, why am I here? What is my gifts? What He told me was, I am a messenger. And what that looks like is sometimes He can send me into corporate. So I'm a little churchy for corporate, a little corporate for church. And I believe that I was allowed to develop that way is because He can send me into the marketplace and I can talk about God in a way that they don't even know that I'm talking about God unless they really know the scripture. But I can also be in church and bring structure and use my gifting around there. So I think it's a process for people to understand. And I think comes out of seeking and relationship with God. And everybody doesn't have that work with me as clients, but I am going on their behalf to get understanding on how to direct them so that they can get some of the answers. So that's why I said it's not a straightforward answer to you. I can only explain the process that I do it for the people that God has given to me to work with.
I love how you said the delineation between your purpose and your assignment. And I think that gets us closer to like you said, it may shift or change 5 years from now, but at least in this day and time, we'll know or have a greater understanding. I think that's brilliant. And then also clarifying that it is a process. Life is a process. There is no black and white or definitive, this is who you are. This is your
5 steps to this, 3 steps. And if you buying those books, I got a book for you.
And you know what? This the thing too about a lot of the books that have been created, especially and I am gonna say names. What's her name? Brene Brown, who wrote the book about vulnerability. Is it Brene Brown or something like that?
I know the book you're talking about.
Yeah, and a lot of the times they write it from their cultural perspective, and it doesn't really suit us. It doesn't. You come in and show up vulnerable in this earth suit. You may show up looking like you're incompetent, and so they don't account for that in some of their professional development. But people like us who've been through the trenches and we understand it and we're able to help others to come through it, I think is important. So yes, I'm gonna get your book and we're gonna have some for real. Give them some real practical, advice on how to change. And I love how you talk about restructuring our thought processes and our mind and what we think. Sometimes as we're meaning making machines and we make meaning associated with our experiences, and sometimes that is to our detriment, right? And really understanding who we are. All right.
That's right.
Yes. So all right, so let's talk about trends and innovation and the things that are happening in your space as far as helping your industry to grow and move in the right direction. Any insights there, and more particularly things that can help this audience as they try to just be their black excellent self in this world. Anything that you can share with this crowd.
The thing that I am learning about now, I'll take a different twist on your question about innovation. It's different when I was in corporate and I was in, so innovation, when I hear that, I think about a different thing. But now I think that one of the things that's impacting all of us is understanding AI technology. If I had to think about any kind of innovation, it impacts the professional development field, for example, that I'm in, from how to use it to, if you're a entrepreneur like myself and you have your own business, how to use AI technology to kind of help you and make your job easier, all the way down to it is now all these areas that it is impacting the IT world in terms of jobs and availability and learning, and how we learn and how it learns and all those things. So I think it's an interesting one if I think about innovation that's hot right now that is in all spaces, down to writing an email. The most simple things to do. The other thing, because I'm in the professional development area, a lot of things that are in terms of trends now is on demand. People love to be able to kind of own that when they learn, how they learn. And so one of the things that I'm trying to create, even for my content, is I want, if you're not ready to invest in one-on-one coaching, because it is an investment, or if you're not in a position to join a mastermind, but you still want to grow and you want to do it besides going to buy a book off a shelf from a person you don't want, that you don't know personally or you don't get to know. I want to create an on-demand library to allow people to hear me speak about a particular topic and then they go and do some work on themselves with it. So I think there are a lot of tools out there that are available, but when I think about professional development and what's changing is the ability for people to kind of own how they grow themselves and what into to the next level that they want to be.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up AI. That's a topic that it seems, especially nowadays, my conversations go back to, and especially being a part of IT, I think that it is a brilliant technology that can help to advance us. I think people have a lot of fears about AI,
Yeah, it is.
and where they're going to be. But what I've found, or what I've seen so far, is that it kind of collapses the gap in knowledge. And so where I was just talking with someone on yesterday about how, even in your field as a scientist, I may not have the aptitude that you have, but the foundational knowledge that you have is afforded to people like me, right? Outside of going for a 4-year degree. If you put some dedication to it, right, and you use these tools as a thought partner, asking questions to help you to broaden your knowledge, it will help you, right, to fast track that. So I like it. I love it. I love what's happening. And I do believe that as a result of it, the landscape of our world is changing. It is changing. I believe that it is changing for the better. As jobs of the past may go away, other jobs will come into play. So just like we saw it happen in the industrial age, we saw it in the information technology age, all of it over, but we're still here. We still make it. And God is
and you're right. People are scared about it. I facilitated a panel and we did a lot of those myth busters and things like that to help people understand it. So you're absolutely right. There are a lot of fears out there.
Yes. Well, I wanted to talk to you about, as we're starting to wrap up, about looking ahead and some of your future aspirations and goals, both professionally and in terms of your impact on the Black community, some of the things that you have going, and also how people can get in touch with you and leverage some of the services that you provide to our community.
Yeah. So what am I looking forward to? 2024 is just around the corner. This is the time of year where we start wrapping up this year, start planning those goals for the next year. So a lot of what I do is help the clients that I work with begin their planning and start to put goals in place. And then I help hold them accountable. So if any of your listeners are looking for that kind of service or feel like they need a thought partner in putting their plans forward in 2024, they can find me on all the social media platforms, Dr. Andrea underscore or dot, depending on it, IDG on Instagram and Facebook. But they can also go to my website and just send a note there at idgvision.com. So in 2024, some of the things that I'm looking to kind of roll out is this thing called the Vision Circle. Is just like circle time is for kids. If you remember circle time, they get in a circle, they share, and they be excited for show and tell, and they learn things and they communicate. I want to create that safe place for people who are on the journey of becoming whatever it is. You fill in the blank, whatever they're becoming. And so invite them to join a circle. And this is a place where they can learn, grow as leaders, increase their ability to lead, communicate, all those soft skills that are important no matter what industry you're going in, but doing it in a way that they can learn with other leaders. And also start to put their goals together. So whatever those goals are, whether they're to start a business, grow a business, if they're for the entrepreneurs, because I work quite a few with small business owners, or it could be someone who is actually in corporate and they just want to grow themselves because they have some career goal that they're having. So I'm going to be launching those. So I'm excited about those. So if people are listening and want to be in a vision circle, they can contact me about that one as well. The conference that I already talked about at the top of the year in January, if they're in Metro Atlanta, we will also have a virtual component that will be added a little bit later to it. But when I think about myself long term, where are they going to see me? I want to see, I envision seeing myself on stages. I have keynote several women's conferences to talk about some of the things that we've talked about today. So whether it is owning their greatness is one of the topics that I speak from frequently, because I think I didn't. When I look back on my corporate experience, I didn't know how. Like you talk about yourself, you are authentically yourself. For me, it took me a while to get there, to get really, I think it's because I wasn't personally comfortable in my own skin and understood what greatness meant for me to bring. So I do keynotes as well with that one too. And so I envision doing more of that in 2024 and beyond.
Yes, yes, yes. Well, I'm excited about what 2024 is going to bring, and prayerfully we'll get you back here in Ohio, bring you home, and
yes, yes,
you
I'd
know,
love to.
yes, yes, yes. So I thank you so much for taking the time to come and share in your talent with us. I know that many people are going to be blessed by what you shared even on tonight, and prayerfully they'll be able to get in touch with you. This is all about building up this community. I'm telling you, we need each other. We need each other. So thank you so much. And I appreciate your time. And prayerfully, you'll be back with us someday soon.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. And I look forward to seeing what you will do with your book and this platform as well. May God bless you as you move forward with it. May your impact be abundant as well. Thank you for having me.
Amen. Thank you.